Heidi-ho, good neighbors. Circumstances over which I have no control have forced me into an action which I am most reluctant to take. However, take this action I must. I'm afraid I have found it necessary to correct grammar on a national level. As I've stated, I'm reluctant to take this action. However, as I look around me, as I observe people going and coming in their everyday lives, it has become imperative. I only have a few examples, but these are the examples that I see pretty much daily. The first example is the misuse of the word literally. It has come to be used as an intensifier, a way to add emphasis to a sentence, thought I saw a polar bear over there. Literally, in order to use the word literally correctly, there must be some figurative way to take what is being said, some idiom. I'll give you an example. You know the phrase pulling one's leg, meaning joking, kidding around. He was pulling my leg. Okay, that's using it in the figurative sense. If I were to say that I was hanging out the window and the guy behind me was literally pulling my leg, meaning he had a hold of my leg, that would be the correct way to use the word literally. There is a figurative way to use it. There is a figure of speech that means something totally different. I can't tell you how many times per day I hear people say, well, I'm literally planning to just lie out on the beach. Oh, really? Is there some figurative way to lie out on the beach that you had to distinguish from literally lying on the beach? And I was literally standing in 5 feet of water. Oh, is there some idiom where standing in 5 feet of water has some other meaning? And I also hear it to add emphasis in an idiom, a figure of speech. Oh, he's literally going to kill me. Going to kill someone, that figure of speech is by definition an idiom. The only way to literally kill someone is to cause their death. So if someone were literally going to kill you, we'd all be going to your funeral. So please stop misusing literally. Before you use the word literally, stop and think, is there some figurative way to express what the idea you're trying to express? Did I say idea? The idea you're trying to express. I make myself laugh sometimes. But anyway, another thing I see pretty regularly is the misspelling of the word y'all. Okay, we're all familiar with contractions. There are two words, or perhaps a longer word, where certain letters are omitted and an apostrophe is used to take the place of those omitted letters. I have begun to see y'all spelled Y-A apostrophe L-L. That would imply that the two words are perhaps Y-A and A-L-L, y'all, which would imply that ya is a word. Students, children, ya is not a word. The correct spelling of y'all is Y apostrophe A-L-L. Now, I have a few notes here. Another thing that has pretty well passed into correct usage, although I don't use it and I refuse to use it, and I wouldn't even allow my cat to use it, is when you see people writing your, Y-O-U-R, when they mean the contraction for you are. The contraction Y-O-U apostrophe R-E is the correct way to, when you're trying to say you're hired, that's Y-O-U apostrophe R-E. Y-O-U-R is the second person possessive pronoun. That means you're wrong, which is totally wrong. But if you were to say you're wrong, then that would mean the wrong belonging to you. But people are using it when they mean YOU''RE, wrong, incorrect. So please stop doing that. Please. Another thing I see fairly regularly is when people are trying to make a word possessive and they just add an S. They say the word, they write the word, and just add an S. That is how you make a word plural, not possessive. Possessive, in most cases, would take apostrophe S. So, I'm trying to think of a good example. There used to be a business where I live called Mitts. And this is a businessman who spelled, he had Mitts in the title of his business name. And he spelled it MYTH''S. That would mean something belonging to the myth. He meant it as plural. So I actually see it both ways. Put apostrophe S when people are trying to make something plural, or just S when they intend to make a possessive. Once again, children, students of mine, well-beloved, the opposite is true. Apostrophe S in most cases, apostrophe S creates the possessive. S just creates the plural. In most cases, there are different rules, like dropping the Y, adding IES, that sort of thing. But in general, apostrophe S for possessive, S for plural. Except when, and this is the general rule I'm thinking of, the apostrophe goes after the S when what the noun is already plural and the word ends in an S, then you would just add the apostrophe to make it possessive. So plural possessive. Anyway, please stop doing that. Another thing that I see or hear is people mispronouncing the word often. OFTEN. Children, the T in that word is silent. Please stop saying often. It is often. Look it up in the dictionary. I know that about which I speak. Excuse me? Anyway, the first polar bear just said it says both, and I'm aware that it says both. I was hoping you would just do it because someone who paid attention in school pronounces it often. But anyway, the first pronunciation is always the most correct, and the first pronunciation lists the T as silent. Another thing I hear fairly frequently is people saying you and I or he and I when it should be you and me or him and me. And I is not always correct. There are times when it's correct to say me and me. And the way the quick way to keep those straight is if you would say I, if you didn't have a compound subject, then you would say I in your sentence, he and I. If you would say me, if you didn't have a compound subject, then you would say me, him and me, when you do have a compound subject. So if I were to say, the bus is coming for him and me, in that case it's correct to say me, because if I took away the him, I would just say the bus is coming for me. If I were to say he and I are going, in that case it's correct to say he and I, because all by itself, oh, something just popped up on the computer, what is that? In that case it's correct to say he and I, because you would say I am going if you didn't have the compound subject. So please understand that it is correct sometimes to say him and me rather than he and I. And another thing I hear fairly frequently is misuse of the reflexive pronouns. I hear people saying, oh, how are you doing? Oh, I'm fine. How about yourself? Yourself is a reflexive pronoun. You wouldn't say, how about yourself? Because unless you was the subject of the sentence. It would be correct to say something like, you yourself know this, because you is the subject of that sentence. But if you is not the subject of the sentence, it's not correct to say yourself. So it's incorrect to say, how about yourself? The correct thing to say is, how about you? How are you doing? How about you? I'm fine. How about you? Another thing as far as the myself, oh, please, I've seen it in letters, please call my secretary or myself. I am not the subject of that sentence, so it would be incorrect to use the reflexive pronoun. Please call my secretary or me. Once again, when it's another instance where it's correct to say me. And this is the last thing I have written down anyway. The mispronunciation of the word realty. I most often hear it pronounced realty. The word is spelled R-E-A-L-T-Y. There is no extra I in there that would cause it to be pronounced realty. The word is realty. Now, these are just a few examples. I'm sure I'll think of others after I've ended this video, and I'll probably post those in the comments or the what is that little box under the video called? Whatever. What is that called, honey?
What?
The little box under the comments. Anyway, it's okay. I'll move on. The little box under the comments? Okay. So I'll post them in the comments or the little box under the video. And please feel free to post your own. So I would like to ask everyone to stop making these grammatical errors, or my head will literally explode.